you have any thoughts, Mike?
Mm, on that particularly, well, yeah, I've had ghostwriting clients like that, and it's like it just always will be pretty short lived. Like, and it's not like it will necessarily end on bad terms or anything like that, but it's just it won't go anywhere in the allotted time. Like, there'll be a client for 90 days and that's it. And
Yeah.
they'll pay you for that time. They'll put out some content. But if they don't have an offer, because I've had some, strange ones. Like, they're not really that strange. I had one, my very first ghostwriting client ever was an SEO guy who was still in the corporate world, and he wanted to like launch a potential like coaching program, but he didn't launch it while we were working together, right? So we built him more of a Twitter following and that kind of thing. But yeah, he kind of just he didn't get it together enough with the offer. And then, some different things came up, some added expenses in his life, and he was just a guy with a good corporate job. So, any additional pressure while not having an offer. And so that just, that folded pretty quickly. Um, and then another one, I have had another client too, actually more recently, who was again a guy in the corporate world who was actually he wanted somebody to ghostwrite for him to pot- potentially land more job opportunities once his contract was up, right? So these are some of the ones that come to mind where, yeah, like they didn't really have an offer,
Right.
and yeah, it's usually pretty short lived. Um, but
Yeah.
it's not like the either guy like wasn't mad about it,
Yeah.
but yeah.
In this particular case, this guy booked my calendar, and I guess it was a referral for someone. And when I showed up to the call, like I mentioned, he looked really legit. I mean, he is legit. He had like a business, but then he had 20,000 followers. But the thing that kind of struck me is interesting is that he was like he had so many ideas, and he wasn't really. He had 3 podcast ideas, but he didn't execute on any of them. And then he wanted to monetize it before, like. So to me, I was like, this is kind of putting the cart before the horse. And I also feel like there's better ways of making money than a podcast. I think that a better way of making money is your core business, and the podcast is more of like an asset to kind of like drive awareness about your business, unless you're just some huge influencer or something like that that has a gazillion followers or whatever, because you're already got like some sort of fame. But the cool thing about that experience is I had a recorded file, and I uploaded that file into Claude, and I was able to chat with it to ask it like, hey, what is wrong? Like, what are some patterns here of like, is this just, I'm trying to get more clients that are sustainable over the long run so I could cross people out earlier so that I don't have to waste my time like with like revision hell with like people that are never going to ship and like that are a little too OCD and that that are just trying to like I think that some of it is like a lack of like when perfectionism becomes a reason not to ship. I see that quite a lot, and I kind of saw that in this particular person. So I think that that was like what was kind of going on in my head. And I was like, maybe I could do this as like an hourly rate as a consulting thing, but I also feel like I'd rather find people that are like more like sustainable and long term that I can carry over for like 6 months to a year or longer.
Yeah.
Perfectionism being the reason to ship is a big one. And you see that with like creators, as well as you see with like founders. I'm separating the two because it's like you got your clients, and then you also see like beginner creators doing the same thing too. Um, but yeah, like that's why actually I have more of the mentality of just like just ship it, you know what I mean? Because that's the only way that you're going to experiment enough and be consistent enough that you will like improve.
Yeah,
Guaranteed, almost.
the way I see it, I think I've probably said this to you guys on a call before, but a piece of advice that I got pretty early on was like, don't take somebody's last dollar. And so I think if you've got somebody that doesn't know their offer yet, doesn't really know who they serve yet because they haven't executed, they don't have those iterations, then you're probably going to run into that same problem of if it was somebody who was established, but you were taking their last dollar, because that person is going to be way more likely to churn quicker if they don't feel like they're seeing monetary results right away. And with any kind of organic content, like you definitely can get leads from great organic content, and like things can turn around like quickly sometimes. I've seen it, but there's always like a little bit of ambiguity with organic content, because people over time, like people will see your stuff more, you'll slowly start to grow, but like somebody could consume your content for months before they decide to buy from you. It's like a long-term kind of nurture process. So I think if you have somebody, whether they have an established business and they're like, we're really struggling right now, like we really need this to work, or it's somebody who's brand new that's like, I think this is what I want to do, and they think they want to put money into it. I think both of those people are high risk cases for high churn, because I think they're coming at content from maybe not the best reason. Like I think when people see content as something that they are like, I need to do this from like a I'm desperate for money kind of place, their head's already not going to be in the right place. I found like the best people to work with, for at least for the type of content I do, are people who like they have cash flow coming in. Like I said, they don't need to be at over 20K a month, but they need to know where their cash flow is coming in from. And they are usually the people who want to do content because they just want to reach more people, and they want to like, build more authentic connections. But it usually comes from a place of like, I want to get my message out there more. I have things to share. I have, expertise and ideas and stories. I just don't take the time to put them out there. Those people I find are way more seamless for me to work with, because then we can come at content from a place of like, let's really get your message down. Like, let's make sure this really resonates with people, not coming at it from a place of like, okay, how do we make you money like ASAP? Because otherwise you're going to stop doing this in 30 days.
Yeah, 100%. I feel like I've had to be a lot more disciplined, like, because a lot of the times I think when someone has a credit card and they're willing to pay, it's so easy to just to be like, "Hey, like, yeah, I could do that. I could promise the world to you." And but I think that if you ignore the red flags in the beginning, then you end up in pain later, which I realized from my last client that like I did like 6 different variations of this audiogram, and I was like, "Dude, like it's not gonna different fonts and all this crap." And I was like, "This guy is just never gonna ship anything." So I think that to some sort of degree, I think that for me personally, I'd rather have people that are already bought into content so that I'm not having to like convince them that content is important. So like I think I was talking to Talon earlier this week on a call, and he was calling it like an entry point. So like the entry point would be like, all right, already bought into content for me is a better lead than someone that's not, because then I'm like, all right, gonna have to like get him to believe in something in content and then believe in this other thing, video or podcasting. So I think that like to me it makes more sense to go upstream and avoid the people that aren't buying into it unless they have like a good attitude and they're like, yeah, I'm in this for the long haul. I don't really care if I don't get like leads for like a little bit. So I think yeah, but a lot of the people I've been coming across are a little bit more difficult lately for whatever reason.
Oh,
I,
do you think
I
that's
was
because
gonna,
you're a free video lead magnet, or
I don't know what it is. I think that it's just more more people through the door, I suppose, right? Like I think that I
Mm,
just need
okay,
more at bats, right? I think that it's just the natural process of like you need probably a shitload of conversations to find it's more about disqualifying, I'm realizing, than taking anyone. Like you have to be selective is what I'm realizing. And in order to be selective, you have to have a pretty big pool of people to go from.
yeah,
Obviously it's
and
different when sorry, go ahead.
more at bats will expose you to some different types of people as well. So you will come across like a lot of different scenarios, right? And you can't let that discourage you too, because yeah, you'll come across people in different situations, different sticking points, and all of that, right? But yeah, there's some people where if you have to go through some crazy belief shifting or something, like, you have to do some hypnosis on them or something to convince them to buy your services, it might not be the best fit.
yeah. I was gonna say, like, building on what I think you had mentioned there, Mike, of like kind of being willing, or finding clients that are willing to like ship. They're choosing like getting it out there over like perfection. That's something that my partner and I actually like talked a lot about with our offer, because we're doing interviews. So we're literally getting the person to say things directly. There's not a lot of like scripting or like paraphrasing that we have to do in the content. So we've completely removed the option of like revisions. So it's like if we interview you and we cut the clips and we're writing posts based on what you said and the way you said it, then theoretically, there should be no need for us to get you to approve the content beforehand, unless after the interview, let's say you came back and you were like, hey, I really don't like the way I've said this. Please let's maybe not use that clip or don't take it out of context. Then there's a conversation to be had there. But I'm taking out that revision period from the offer because of the way we're structuring it. And that's not to say like, hey, what we put up there is what it is, and fuck you if you don't like it. For sure, like we say, like, hey, if you're ever unhappy with any of the content, we are more than willing to revise. Like, we want it to sound like you. But the way that we're structuring it removes the need for us to get them to approve the words because it's their words. And I think what you're talking about, Jer, of like learning how to better disqualify people, I think you're doing exactly what you need to do to get better at that, because clarity around disqualification comes with iteration.
Yeah.
Like iteration is what builds confidence. So the more you do this, the more you learn, like, oh, every time I end up working with a client that isn't a good fit for me, they seem to have this same kind of red flag that pops up. I think I'm maybe not going to ignore that anymore. But you don't learn that without iteration.
Yeah.
So
Through the pain of going through of like revisions.
yeah.
Someone said your hair looks fire, by the way, in the comments.
Oh,
Kelsey.
that's so nice. I hope I'm pronouncing this right. I hope I'm saying that right. Thank you. I think Mike's hair looks better personally. Look at that
Well,
beard.
Mike's got
Thank you.
that beard is fucking solid. I wish I could grow a beard like
Yeah.
that.
I'm going to do a transplant soon and move it to the head. Yeah. Can we just talk about how we have 4 people on this live today, but we had 47 on the last call?
49.
Wow.
Yeah,
what a
49.
difference.
Yeah.
They're still
That
piping in.
that live was so strange though. It was like as soon as we started I almost wondered in the moment. I was like, is there a glitch going on? And I remember looking at Mike's face and I could tell he was thinking the same thing I was, because we were like, what is happening? It was like pew 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 pew. And then we had 49 at the end. And it didn't seem like a lot of people were engaging in the live though. It's like a lot of people were in there, but we didn't get as many people asking questions or posting things as we usually do. So I'm like, what was going on with Substack that day? Was it just like a weird glitch? But in any case, we're very happy to have even 4 people on the call with us. We appreciate you guys.
Yeah. Yeah. Less pressure, last time was our like amazing call for us, just in every way, actually. All the topics were great. 47 people on the call, but you're right about that. Less comments.
Yeah.
People just listening,
Yeah. Yeah. It's interesting.
I've been doing a shitload of prospecting too this week. Like I've been doing like 40 DMs sometimes in a day. I set a timer for like 99 minutes and I just fucking bang it out. I've been booking like a shitload of meetings. I booked like 3 meetings this week, and I have the inbound meetings coming in on my calendar. So I know that to me, I'm just building out the pipeline. I'm doing the boring work essentially that I fucking hate doing. But I know that the boring like kind of setter role or whatever, the SDR or whatever you want to call it, the person that gets the meetings. But it's working. I'm excited for when it starts actually like, the results start coming in. Usually I think there's a little bit of a lagging thing with like between like by the time you book a meeting and then by the time you like talk with people and then close and whatnot. But I'm excited to keep on pushing forward. And I wish I had more credits with Claude, because I had it like basically I was taking like a screenshot and then dumping into Claude, and then I had all the instructions written for like a 300 character DM, and it's working out like nicely, but I was running out of credit, so that kind of was messing me up a little bit. But
Nice, man. 40 DMs in a day. Are we talking like just 40 cold outbound, or like a mixture of follow up and cold? What is
that was
that?
like 40 just pitches, and I go pretty fast. I have
Damn.
like one window that has Sheets up, one window that has Claude up. Claude's already like pre-trained on how to write like me. So like I was mentioning earlier, like my strategy is, and you can steal this too, Kelsey, but like you find people that are like C-suite founders, co-founders, head of whatever. And then I also look at like, all right, is this person like, maybe they like Alex Hormozy as a creator, right? So I know that they're kind of bought into some sort of creator economy shit. And then I go in there, and if I'm like, they have over 1,000 followers, I just screenshot it, dump it into Claude, and say, hey, pitch this person. And it'll write like most of what I need in like a minute or so. And all I do is like look over it, tweak it a little bit, and shoot it. And it seems to work pretty well. I mean, like I could book meetings pretty fast that way. But I also think it's because it's a little bit thought out, because I'm like I was mentioning earlier, I'm going after people that already are bought into content. and I could visibly see that they're not on video. So at least on LinkedIn, they might have video in other places. I'm not like digging deep. I'm just kind of making the assumption if like they are on video somewhere else and I didn't catch that, correct me, whatever.
Mhm. Yeah, that's awesome. I feel like the universe is pointing me to just fucking get Claude already. People keep talking about the awesome things that they could do with Claude. Like Aldous and Taylin seem like they use a lot of Claude in their business. I interviewed them this week. I see people posting about, I think Stefan actually, who is in our ghostwriting community, posted today on Substack, like if you're still using ChatGPT for anything creative writing, then you're 10 years behind me on Claude or some shit like that. And I was like,
Yeah.
and honestly, it's the same. Like, I'll be fully transparent. I'm just like, well, I'm gonna have to take time to like learn Claude then and probably move a lot of stuff over. And I've just been resisting because of that. But I keep hearing people say that it's so much better with like creative writing work. Like, it's not even comparable. So I know I need to get on there. But I think I've told myself that before I do that, I need to do like an audit of all the softwares and stuff that we're paying for every month, because it's so easy to just be like slowly accumulating softwares and tools, and then you look at your bill and you're like,
What the fuck?
why are we paying for, I don't even know what these things are, so I'll do that. But it seems like Claude is also more expensive because it's a credit system, right?
Yeah, another thing too, yeah, you use up your credits pretty fast. I think it was like $200 for like the year, but for the most part, I just use it for writing. I try not to use it for prospecting because it eats too many of the credits up. I don't know if it's because it's having to read the
Mhm.
image or something like that. One thing I've noticed that I actually learned from Taylor too is asking it like questions, be like, help me write these instructions and tell me what you need from me so that I know like so that they are on point. And that tends to do really well, I think, when you ask that. Um yeah, but I'm a fan. I definitely would try it.
Nice.
Jeremy, if you're sending an image to Claude, you could instead just copy paste the text, eh?
Yeah, you could do that too, for sure. I think that would probably save some credits maybe because like
Yeah.
I think the image probably is a little bit more intensive. What I noticed though is like my whole thing is like my pitch is basically like compliment the first line, maybe something like, hey, you have 10,000 followers, you're killing it, like 9 years in business or whatever. But what I noticed sometimes is like Claude would parrot, like it would just like not like interpret, it would like kind of copy and paste. So I was like, hey, like I need you to
Yeah.
like internalize this, not parrot it back, like actually
Mhm.
like add something of like more interesting. So I had to kind of like tweak it a little bit to get the instructions to like actually write like properly because otherwise it just sounds a little bit like body.
You know what's interesting? I've heard people talk about this, and I like that Claude is a lot better at being accurate to what you're saying, because ChatGPT has a habit of like paraphrasing. So if I put in like a full transcript and I'm like, this is my interview with this person, find me the parts in the interview where he talks about this specific thing. And it's notorious for not pulling direct quotes. It'll like make things up. And
Yep.
then I ask it like, I'm like, oh, where, like, did he actually say that? Because I'm like, I don't fucking remember him saying this gold in the interview. And then it's like, no, he didn't. Let me go find one where he did. And it doesn't matter how many times you tell it not to do that. It's like that's ChatGPT's go-to is to paraphrase. And I've heard that
Yep.
Claude is the complete opposite of that, in that Claude is way better at pulling the word for word and like the facts of things. So it sounds like in your case, you said it parrots things, so it almost does that to the opposite extent.
Yeah, a little bit. Yeah.
I I'll tell you something about ChatGPT. It got a lot worse at reading PDFs at a certain, like it just happened like, oh, it's when they went to ChatGPT 5 or whatever, GPT 5. It once they switched over to that, I actually made a post about this, is that it will just it will tell you that it like read or parsed. By the way, that like that word or that language is very important. Tell it to parse the PDF, and sometimes you actually have to tell it to do it like 2 times or even 3 times. And then you ask it, it's like, okay, did you actually read it? It's like, okay, yeah. Truth be told, I didn't actually read it there. It's like, okay, so do you want to actually do the thing that I've told you to do?
Yeah.
Like for the third time. But yeah, like I just noticed that one day with GPT-5 that it's like I gave it a PDF and it like just started making stuff up about the document. And I'm like, that was definitely never said in the document. It's like thank God that like I remember exactly what I said on the call with the client, right? So yeah, like they both have their pros and cons, but I agree, like Claude is also much better at that too. Like it will pull absolutely everything from the PDF like very clearly. One of the few things I think that ChatGPT is actually like maybe has an advantage in is understanding like maybe like structure and like restraint a little bit more than Claude sometimes. But even with Claude, like if you then like correct it and tell it what to do, it'll get there as well. So yeah, GPT ChatGPT has some bigger disadvantages for sure. Yeah.
Interesting.
On PDF,
Um,
sometimes I'll ask it to like, pull the exact section of something. Like, I don't know, like, I'll be like, hey, can you pull this section 6 of this document? And then usually it'll pull like the exact section. That kind of helps. I feel like the more I talk to it, like, hey, what do you need from me is like the big thing that like I was missing
Mm.
before. Cause even with like content, I'm like, here's the idea for the content. Like, here's like, all right, I want to I've fired this client because he did 8 revisions or whatever. What else do you need from me to write in my style or whatever? And then when it asks me those questions, then I feel like it gives it a little bit more depth. Like, so I feel like that extra little freight or that extra little piece definitely helps.
I'm
I
not
think
a
that
big like prompt guy. I am more of I have a conversation with the AI. Like, so I'm writing, like, you could call it a prompt, sure. But I just basically write exactly what I want on the fly, right? Yeah, I don't like search up people's prompts and stuff because I don't need it. I know what I want as the end product, right? So I just tell it exactly what's like what you just said there. Like talking to it like that, like, what do you need from me here? I've given you this information. What do you need? Yeah.
yeah, I don't. I think I will definitely try Claude and see what its writing capabilities are like. But even with ChatGPT, like a big or thing I've heard from people is that Claude is way better at doing writing stuff than ChatGPT, and like getting better at, saying things in the voice you tell it to say it in. I don't really lean on ChatGPT to write a lot of my stuff for me. I definitely use it, like you said, Mike, to like have a conversation and go back and forth and sometimes help me like get clear on what I'm trying to say. Or I'll ask it like, can I say this in a way that makes more sense? And I find using it in that way is really helpful for me because I still end up writing it the way I think sounds best, but it's a good like ideation partner and it's a good like editor to kind of bounce things off of. Um, you know, maybe Claude does that and is way better at it for sure. But I think when I've heard people say like, oh, if you're using it for writing, then you should definitely go to Claude. I'm like, yeah, maybe, but I don't really lean on it heavy to say my words for me. I just use it to help me get sharper on what I'm already trying to say. And sometimes it's like if I was to send something to one of you guys and I'm like, "Hey, this is what I'm trying to say. Can I say it better?" And then it just like shoots things back at you and you're like, "Oh yeah, that sounds way better." So it's like a partner, not a writer for me.
Good way to put it.
Yeah. And Claude is it's also much better than that because at that because it's a bit more of a hard it's no, it's much more of a harsher critic, which is what you want. However, even with Claude, you have to be careful, right? Because you might give it an idea and it will come back with stuff that's very obviously still very patterned AI type stuff. Like it will insert the but here's the thing, those sort of connecting lines that it's like, and here's what I changed and stuff like that. When it's like you didn't want that, right? But it's going to format everything like that, right? With the here's here's what I changed, not X, not Y, just Z. Oh my God! If I had a nickel for every time it's giving me the not X, not Y, just Z.
Yeah.
Yeah. So So you got to watch. Like in order to use AI in an effective way, you have to be very good at like discernment, and you have to know what you ultimately want as the end product, um, in order to use it in a way where it's going to keep any of your voice and actually just not sound like AI.
Is there any concerns for you guys that like at some point these costs of Claude and GPT is going to become really expensive just because the amount of data that it costs to actually run these? They're losing like a shitload of money. So I'm wondering if like their play is to like get everyone like so ingrained in all these systems, and then all of a sudden like it's not even affordable anymore. So that is actually kind of like a kind of a concern that's in the back of my head.
I think the way that it's so funny because I was thinking about this the other day because my partner and I were talking about YouTube. Because like I don't know how much time you guys spend on YouTube, but especially if you watch something on your computer, on an iPad, or on a television, it hits you with so many ads now, regardless of the video. Like the YouTube just getting so heavy on the ads, and it's like it's obviously trying to push people to get the premium membership so you don't get bombarded with these ads. And we're just like resisting it because I'm like, I don't justify paying like $20 a month for YouTube Premium. It's just not something that I want to do right now. But I keep thinking like that's the way a lot of apps will probably go. Is they get you in on the free thing, they get you like using it in your workflows or in your business somehow, or just going to it every day, and then they can slowly increase the price because now it's baked into your process. But I think what you're asking, Jer, I've thought about, and it kind of goes back to what I said before of like, I absolutely use AI as a tool in like so many areas of my business, but I'm trying to be cautious of like how much I outsource myself to AI and ask it to handle the things that I think I could do better. Because I want to use it for like time efficiency, but actually, I think Taylin explained this really well on our call this week because he said we were talking about like AI replacing writers and ghostwriters because these AIs are getting really good at, basic copywriting and stuff. I guess it depends what you consider good, but they're getting better. And he kind of had an interesting way of looking at it. He's like, if you're writing purely for the output because you just want decent quality writing to put out there, then that's one thing. But if you're somebody who writes for the craft and you want to actually get better as a writer, as a speaker, as a creator, then you're probably going to be way more conscious of how much you're outsourcing to AI because you're not just doing it for the output of like the post. You're writing because it's part of what you do and you want to keep getting better at it. So if you completely outsource that to AI, then you as a writer, as writing being your craft, it probably doesn't really serve that as much as somebody who only cares about the output. Does that make sense?
Yeah. I like to think of it like you said earlier, Kelsey. Like what you said was really great, like a partner. Like for example, like when I do my video interviews, like I'll record the whole thing and then I'll watch through the whole thing to see like what hit in my own mind, and then I'll compare my notes to like Claude. I'll update the text and I'll say, hey, tell me about like which hooks stood out to you in this thing, and like tell me like where you would go or whatever, where would you clip, so that way I can kind of compare. I think I just look at it just like as a partner, like you'd mentioned, someone that I could kind of get ideas off of, so that like I'm not like just. And I also ask it to poke holes in my ideas, like where is this like falling short, like where am I fucking up here, like how is this, how could this be better. So I think that like a soundboard. But yeah, I get what Taylor's saying, like don't like overly rely on it to like only to like make your brain become like mush, I suppose, if like you're just relying on it too much.
Mhm.
Yeah, something that came to mind for me there is like, do you really think, well, you could have AI generate a bunch of open ended questions for you, right? And then through asking those open ended questions, you could also then have it rank your ideas, right? You could do a 2 hour long interview with it, right? And answer all the different questions, which actually would be a really great thing to do to generate content in your voice, completely true to your story, all that, right? Um, but like, let's say a founder was to sit down and do that. So he's still going to have to go through the motions of doing that and like, answering all those questions, having it like rank them and all this. And then like, he's got to, go through those and kind of use discernment in this to like, okay, is that actually the best idea and all this? And then he's got to, and then he could then be like, okay, now, so this idea that we talked about my story with my different milestones. Okay, can you go ahead and draft that for me? And it does. And it throws in like the not X, not Y, not Z. But here's the thing, because it's not just about authenticity, it's about impact at scale. Okay. So it does that rendition. And now he's also got to be smart enough when it comes to content that he can then like have the discernment to go through and be like, okay, well, let's remove all those connecting lines that just sound like AI writing. And is that actually a good hook? Right. Um, so he's gotta know a thing or two about content. And and then he also then has to take all that, edit and refine it, um, schedule it out, hire a graphic designer. Um, is he going to be doing engagement as well? Is he going to be sending connection requests? So it's like, is he really going to save it by doing it himself? Like, first of all, he's investing all of that time, right? Is is he really going to be able to do it that much faster just because he's using AI? Um, I don't think so. I don't think it's actually going to save him that much time. So of course, like, with something like ghostwriting and with your service too, you're looking for people where it actually makes sense. Like the guy who's making $10,000 a month, quite frankly, does not need a ghostwriter. But the guy who's making 20 or 30,000, maybe he can begin to think about that. Right. So it's a premium service, you know.
Yeah, I mean,
It's not for everybody.
it depends. Like, if the person's making like $500 to $1,000 an hour and he's wasting 5 hours on AI, that's 5 grand right there. So it's like,
Yeah.
at some
Exactly.
rate, yeah. So it's kind of like going back to the qualifying thing, right? It's like, to your point, like you have to go after people that have the money, the authority, and plus they're not going to have, like you mentioned, like all the pattern recognition of knowing, like, hey, that here's the thing is like a little off, like in the writing or whatever, because we've seen it so many times. So I think that a lot of us, we have such good pattern recognition because we've spent so much time with the content and also like tested out all these different like things that they haven't done.
Yeah. I think
Even the
there's
regular everyday people are starting to spot AI. I see it all the time on LinkedIn. Some guy is like a CTO or something, and he's talking about AI patterns in the comment sections of people's posts. You know,
Interesting.
sorry, Kelsey.
no, that's okay. I was gonna say similar to what you said, Jer. I think about it, it's less about like what is this person earning monthly, like whether they're earning 10K, 20K, 50K. It's less about that. It's more about like what they feel an hour of their time is worth to them. Because if they're going to take 5 hours this month to try to figure out, okay, what do I want to make content about? Okay, how do I do that? Do I make a script? Do I just grab my phone and put it in front of me? Okay, cool. Well, how do I edit it? Because I've messed up a lot. And then, okay, I gotta like write a post to go with it, and they might like overthink the shit out of that. And then actually like posting it, I find that's like the finish line that a lot of business owners, founders don't get over is they're like, I have this content. I just never like actually get it over the finish line and put it out there. So if they're going to take, a bunch of hours to try to figure all that out, and an hour of their time could be worth like, I don't know, 3 grand to them, 4 grand to them, if they could use that hour to close a sale, then how many hours of like, what is that opportunity cost of them trying to figure this out on their own? And there is more to it than, I think there is something to be said of like shipping and not being a perfectionist all the time, like just getting content out there. But somebody who has no experience of like writing, ghostwriting, what makes a good hook, what makes a good post, they don't have the knowledge that the three of us have about like different social platforms and stuff. They're probably gonna take what AI gives them and not question it in the way that we would. Because like what you said, Mike, I think it was you, Mike, you're talking about like asking it to give you the best hooks or something like that, like asking it to kind of shortlist ideas for you. I found that with AIs, you have to be very specific about like based on what. Like, give me the
Yes.
best hooks. Give me the best hooks based on SEO. Give me the best hooks on, based on like what people are searching in this industry. give me the best hooks based on what this person elaborated on the most. Like, you have to give it that context of like, what does a best hook actually mean to you? And then you still might question what it puts out just based on instinct. You might still think, I know you're saying that's the best hook, but I actually don't agree.
Yeah, actually, quick thing on that too. Um, what I've found that actually does work, and the thing is, a founder would never know this, right? Unless they've experimented with it enough. And if they've experimented with that much, they're probably a marketer. If they've honestly put that much time into learning content marketing, and it's like, maybe you should do it yourself, because actually you seem like quite a good marketer, But if you're well, anyway, um, if you go to like say like a Claude or something like this, right? And like, okay, so what's the best hook? If you if you tell it that this is the goal that I'm actually looking for, like I want I want my posts to kind of like say go viral or get like high traffic, but also convert clients. That could be one goal, right? Or another one would be I only care about converting clients, right? So we can go more narrow and all that. I don't care if like the posts get less impressions. Like one thing that I found is I told either ChatGPT or Claude at one point, like that's what I was optimizing for like LinkedIn hooks or something like this. Like that I want the post to have like viral potential, but also be something that can potentially land clients. And that was like a really good sweet spot because you want high traffic, but then you also want it to filter and convert clients as well. Sometimes the high traffic is the thing that gets it out in front of enough people that it actually does convert in the first place, right? So that's what I found was kind of the sweet spot, as opposed to imagine. So you just feed it a bunch of like people's hooks. Like here's a bunch of Dan Coe's hooks. Here's a bunch of Dakota Robertson hooks. Here's a bunch of Jasmine Alec hooks, and here's some Gary V hooks. Well, the problem there is you also might be then optimizing for hooks of people who are at different stages, who sell very different products. Like actually, most of the guys I just listed there are selling B2C or they're going very top of funnel. So like a Dan Coe hook probably is not going to help you too much. You're just going to come across as like some philosopher when it's like you're trying to sell B2B services.
The one thing I noticed too is that some founders, like I even work with some that don't really know, like they don't feel their story is like that interesting because they're so close to it. Like I had one guy that was like, he built a brokerage to $10 million, and like he didn't really think that that was that interesting. He went bankrupt and then built another one and sold it. But I think for some reason, like when you're like in the weeds of something, it's harder to like see that what's going on in your life is actually interesting. And then I think that it's more our job is like editorial to come in and be like, hey, this is actually really interesting, and here's what we're going to use this $10 million mark. And I think also some people probably are a little bit like I don't know, more modest, more humble. They don't want to come across as like bragging. And I think in social media, you kind of have to like lead with like the specificity of like the accomplishment. So I think that there's a little bit of that too, like giving them actual permission, unless there's some like extroverted like egomaniac that kind of already knows that or whatever. So I find that a lot of people are a little bit more humble.
Yeah, I actually think that's one of the best things about like doing the interview kind of style of content that we all kind of do in our business. Because you're almost giving people like permission to brag a little bit. And like I'm exactly this way too. Like if I accomplish something that I'm really proud of, I am way less likely to like grab my phone and take a selfie of me talking about like, hey, I did this thing. But 100%, if somebody asked me about it on an interview, I feel like I have permission to talk about it because somebody else asked. It's like a just weird human psychology thing. Like we fear coming across as vain if we just put these things out there ourselves. But if somebody else pulls it out of us, it's like, hey, this person asked, you know? And I think a lot of people are like that. But building on what you said, Jer, I think a lot of people are modest, yeah, in that they kind of downplay their achievements, not necessarily out of like insecurity, but more so probably because a lot of us we have a goal, we hit it, and we're immediately on to the next goal. So sometimes it takes somebody stopping you and being like, hold on, that's fucking cool. I have 4 questions about it for you to, like, dig into it, and, like, a goal that I always kinda have, whether it's something that I've seen them talk about a lot, so I know that they own it, or it's something that they just, like, say in passing in the interview, is, like, if I think there's something really interesting or unique or, like, just a good repurposable idea, I try to come at it from, like, 4 different angles. So I always try to have, like, a follow-up question, or like I try to dig into it, or ask a question in a way that maybe they hadn't thought of before. So that's kind of always one of my goals, is like I'm going to ask about the things that you put out there, the things that you own, but I'm also probably going to find some other stuff that you maybe aren't owning and talking about, and get you to see the story behind those and why we should talk about them.
100%.
Yeah. What people are also getting with these services, whether it's ghostwriting or like more video based, is also like a consultant, right? So all the years of past experience that you have, maybe in marketing, writing, personal branding, and all this, you're bringing that to the table. And I don't care what anyone says, because we got like so many people are just like such AI fanboys and stuff. And I'm really not like I've said to a couple people, if you gave me the option, if someone said to me, it's like, Mike, you could make $5 million this year if you just used AI in your business, or you could go back like 10 years or something and stop AI completely. Honestly, I might just take one for the team and just not have AI move forward. Honestly, because I do actually see it as that destructive. However, since I can't really stop that train and it's probably just going to continue, what like no matter what I do, instead I figure, okay, shit, maybe I'll use it. Maybe I'll use it to also make more money, to get into a position where my voice would actually matter more in the first place. And maybe then I could talk about a whole bunch of other stuff that I actually that I care about as well. That might be even worse than AI for the future of humanity.
What I also
But there's
think
a
comes
lot
up
of
too
downside to AI.
is the lived experience, right? I feel like AI is only good at shaping the lived experience if it actually was real and it had depth. Like you went out and did cool shit. You jumped off a 60-foot snowboard jump. You traveled to Paraguay, ate some steaks, went to a soccer game in Argentina, whatever. Like, unless you actually experienced it, I think that it's going to lack the depth of someone that actually did. And you could tell the
Yeah.
writers on LinkedIn that haven't like really had any business experience because they're talking in platitudes. They're not talking in specificity. So I think that that is also missing. Like you could AI anything, prompt and write perfectly, but if it's missing like emotional depth from the actual experience, then I think it's going to always lack.
Yeah, it's the emotional depth, it's the details in the story. Like, I remember you talking about Jer, one of your clients, who might have even been that guy who, grew the $10 million brokerage and then went broke, and you said his house got, like, raided or some crazy shit like that,
Sure.
and you
Yeah.
you were like, "'Kay, come back to this story, like, take me to that moment." That's something I learned in journalism, is that, like, if you're trying to tell a story, you gotta, like, bring people into the story, and it's always, like, the tiniest little details that make people feel like they're actually there. So if you're telling a story about snowboarding, you wanna describe to these people, like, what the air felt like that day, like, was the sun in their eyes, like, how crazy was the hill they were going down? What did they feel like as they got off the ski lift or whatever? Like, you paint that picture in a very human way, and I think going back to what Taylin said about writing for the output of having posts, or writing for, like, the craft of writing, people who write because they're drawn to it, because they love it, because it's a craft to them, I mean, like, we could all probably look at posts and identify, like, who has been writing longer and who's just using AI, because it's in the little human details that AI just can't replace. Um, and I think going back to what you said, Mike, of, like, how much, you like, your thoughts on AI and how much you use it in your business, I very much see it as it's a tool that I want to use to speed up some processes, to kind of take myself out of the monotonous work that I don't think really needs my brain power to do, but needs to get done and takes up my time. So I think there's a clever way to do it in like using it to speed up processes. But I think people who are really leaning into AI to like outsource their thinking, I think are only disadvantaging themselves because I mean, I've even seen it in myself. Like sometimes I go to AI to like answer questions or like work through things that I'm like, I should probably just sit down and think about this myself. Like I try to be conscious of how much of my brain power I'm outsourcing to AI because I don't want to feel like I become dependent on AI to like operate in my life and in my critical thinking. I think you need to kind of be wary of that. Like where am I using AI to actually speed things up? And where am I using AI to just like give me permission to fucking think?
Yeah. Yeah, I think AI can work for you particularly well if you're also a disagreeable person, where you have it spit something out, right, which might be complete dog shit, and then you go through and it's like, I disagree with that. I wouldn't say it that way, and just absolutely like, if you're good at like ripping things to shreds and then like building them back up, which actually like I got pretty good at as well, because when I was in within the ghostwriting business, once I kind of scaled things up, um, I I brought on writers, right? And I would get writing where I'm just like, nah, this just sounds way too much like AI. It's too surface level. All these different things. So I got really good because I was trying to get like I was trying to get as fast as possible at the same time, because I didn't want to spend, especially when I'm paying somebody, you know, I'm paying this person to write the content, and I also still have to sit down for 2 or 3 hours and edit this. Like, there's something wrong here. So I tried to get as fast as possible while still being super efficient and making sure that the quality was super high. So I got really good at spotting what I like and what I don't like. Um, so yeah, if you're very like discerning and disagreeable and all this, then I think it can work better for you as well.
Got anything, Kelsey?
No, I agree.
I think there's something to with like the discernment though, like you had mentioned, Mike. I think that like just being able to tell like whether or not something doesn't hit or it sucks or for whatever reason. Like you had a post the other day, or I think it was your newsletter that was talking about how you flew down to like South America, like basically like your life was kind of like at this pivoting point where like
Mm.
you were it wasn't you were like not at the place you wanted to be at, but you're like, I could either fucking like build myself up in South America or do it from home. And I think stories like that are like very visceral because it's like, fuck, like that takes a lot of balls, like to go out there and like and do that to put yourself in a completely new environment. But I think it's also kind of interesting because like everyone's brain is so different the way they approach things. And I think that you threw yourself in the fire to some sort of degree that made you kind of just like rise up, which I think is cool because I think that not a lot of people have like that kind of courage or whatever. So I don't know, maybe it's something to do with like new environments and not thinking too much, but a lot of people will get in their head like, oh, how am I going to make it? Like, da 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 da. Like, how am I? Yeah. So I love stories like that, though, like that lived experience again.
Yeah. Yeah, for that particular story, like I did spend about, 1 to 3 months in like the fall of 2023, kind of going back and forth thinking about that, right? Because I was like, dude, you got into the whole online business thing so you could travel, right? And it's like, yeah, your business might have, because in the summer I hit like, it was my first real peak as a ghostwriter, and I hit something like 10 or 11K Canadian or something, right? But then by the fall of 2023, of course, some clients churn, especially when you're a new ghostwriter. So slowly but surely they were churning. And even still, even though like, I was in a downfall or whatever, I decided, no, like this is the moment. Like, pull the trigger and do this. And South America is a little bit cheaper. Um, and yeah, just pull the trigger on this and do this and build back the business when you're down in Colombia. So that's what I decided to do. But something I thought about as well, because you were talking about platitudes earlier, and you can obviously write content from a more universal standpoint where you're not even talking about your own lived experience. You're not talking about a personal story, but you're just putting out something that is more just like a universal message. And I think that's an important kind of like pillar or type of content that you can do, right? And some of that stuff has some real like top of funnel potential because it's not like so narrow and so specific where it's just about your story about what you did 7 years ago when you were building your cybersecurity business. It's like, here's a business lesson written from a sort of like you and your type perspective, universally themed, whatever, right? Applies to a lot of people. And platitude type stuff, if you've been putting out a bunch of content that has your personal story and has personality in it and has opinion, when you go and drop that platitude post, it actually means something, right? Because it's kind of like when somebody like a David Goggins or an Andy Frisella or a Gary Vaynerchuk or Frank Kern or whatever, when they say something, even if it's super simple, like somebody like David Goggins or Andy Frisella saying like just do the work or something like this, right? Like just motivational like platitude type lines, right? But it still has like way more weight than some, creator who just started yesterday saying like just do the work, and some platitude that follows it. But because you know this person, you know their lived experience, you know their whole like transformation story, when they drop that platitude, it actually means something. So yeah, that's something to
I'm gonna
keep in mind. And it's why like AI just doesn't cut it. Like you still need the stories and the lived experience.
I got a question for you guys. What do you guys think about like you content versus I content? Because I sometimes catch myself writing like you content, like this is, and then I'm like, I feel like I'm like being like a guru for some reason when I'm like, you need to do this, you need to do that, versus like I did this, I did that. It just feels like more natural to me for some reason when I do it that way. And I sometimes do write you content, but I was just curious your guys' thoughts on that. How you feel about that?
Yeah, I think the you content is what often comes across as that like guru type thing. I have a client who uses that term a lot. Like he's like, I don't want to be like, I don't want to come across like the online gurus out there. And I'm like, okay, what does that mean to you? Like what to you is an online guru? And it was basically exactly what we're talking about. He's like, oh, it's somebody that like, tries to sound really wise in their post and they share things like advice that people should take, but they don't actually have any authority in that space. They don't have any testimonials. They haven't actually like done anything to warrant people like taking this advice from them. And he's like, I always want to come at it from a place of like, I have skin in the game. I've been doing this for 10 years. This is what I've done, not like hey, here's why you should listen to me. And I think it is just that simple of that language of like, you should versus like how I did this. Um, and I think like what you said there, Mike, about working in those personal posts and those personality posts is going to make those advice posts go farther because it's like every post you put out is just like adding another page to your story, and you're going to have people that eventually read the whole book. They like they follow you for a really long time and they've seen enough of your content that they're like, I know Mike's story, I know Jeremy's story, and they know the experience and the testimonials and the authority that you bring to the space. So when you post something that you're kind of sharing as like a universal truth, which often is like kind of calling people out or being like, stop doing this, do this, they have that context that you're coming at it from a place of like lived experience. So I think if you're going to make posts like that where it is kind of platitudes, and I like, just to be clear, when I think of platitudes, I think of like a lot of LinkedIn content where people are kind of just regurgitating the same advice over and over again, and you're like, this is just like a platitude at this point. I think you need to work in that personality in those personal posts and give people the context of like why they should listen to you on this, why they should take any advice from you. Because I think if you're just sharing advice or you're like, you look at something that Dan Coe shared where he gave advice and you're like, oh, that sounds smart, I'm going to go share that. I mean, people, I need the context on like who the fuck you are and why they should take any advice from you.
I'm a big fan of like throwing out or putting out some like opinions that are a little bit strange sometimes because you know that AI can't replicate that. Like AI just plays within this very tight box because it's only using other people's content to to source like ideas. So now the key though is you don't just put out like your stranger, edgier, polarizing ideas like just to like get a rise out of people. But if it's something that you actually believe, where you're like, yeah, a lot of people wouldn't naturally arrive on this thought, but it's something that I believe. I'm a big fan of that because it really separates you. And I think that like a lot of people know, wow, that's not an idea I've seen AI use. Like, and even sometimes that's critiquing AI. Like I put out a post one time where it's like AI is robbing people of their own vocabulary. Well, AI is never going to give you that idea. AI is only going to give you like pro AI type ideas. So
So I think
yeah,
videos
that's
so
another thing.
Yeah, I think video is so important for that reason too, because that you can actually see how people think, like what we're doing right now in like real time, right? Like if we fuck up, we lose our train of thought or whatever. You're going to see it. You're not going to see this perfect, polished piece of content or whatever. And even the people that are doing like the videos by themselves, like they might be using a teleprompter. I don't know, maybe they're a performer. It's really interesting because we can only hold so many pieces of information in our head at a time. That's why it's kind of hard. I feel like to actually sound like super like I don't know, charismatic when you're just filming yourself because you don't have the reaction of like you guys. I could see my nervous system it has the reaction of you guys nodding, whereas when I'm by myself, staring at myself, I might be looking at the metacognition of being like, "Oh, look, I look fucking weird right now, and look what I'm saying." Da 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 da. And because I'm a little bit more like introverted, like I have a tendency to do that, like where I could start looking, analyzing the thoughts of the thoughts, which is like, and that's a bad thing when you're like, trying to convey something to someone. So I think that's why the interview things are actually really powerful too, because like when you're interviewing someone, it gets them out of their head. They're not sitting there like just trying to like talk from the dome only. So
Yeah, and I think about it a lot. I can't remember if it was you, Mike, or you, Jared, that touched on this, but I think it was you, Mike. Like when you have somebody on a conversation with you that comes from a marketing or a content creation or a ghostwriting background, that person's already going to be probably more savvy with their words and their questions than a lot of other people might be. And when you have a conversation with somebody like that and you're talking about things you're working on or goals you have or whatever, it's just like a more organic way of getting ideas out because you have somebody else questioning you and like maybe asking a follow-up question or like nodding along, or if they don't agree, they might ask you like a clarifying question around it. It's just a more organic way to get content out. I think probably 99% of people would say that they have they say better things or they have better ideas come to them when they're in conversation with somebody, as opposed to like they're just sitting talking to themselves in the mirror and trying to have a breakthrough from it. A guy wrote my whole newsletter this week on our conversation last week because I was like, this is exactly why I think interviews work. Like you get on a call with somebody else who's actually like interested in what you're doing. And especially if it is like somebody like us who's like a ghostwriter or somebody creating content for you, they're going to be invested in your business and they might ask you questions that you wouldn't think to ask yourself. So it's beneficial for so many reasons.
It can take years to get good at being on video. There's this guy, buddy of mine, right? And back when I was doing food blogging and restaurant marketing, we ended up talking on Instagram, and then we decided we are going to meet in like this place in Toronto called Kensington Market, and meet at a burger joint, and maybe do like a food review thing on video and all this, just like very spontaneous and all that, right? And he had like 600 followers at the time on Instagram. I think I had like 15,000 or 20,000 or something like this, right? But I I liked the kid. He was a younger guy. I can call him a kid. And I'm like, I could tell you everything that you would need to know to like build a following and all this. It just depends like how committed you are in this, right? And but anyway, we were gonna do this review, and when we were doing it, I noticed he was very like in his head when he was on the camera. Like he was trying to be all like showy and stuff, like all like I don't know, like too polished and almost like salesy. And I'm like, dude, you just got to be like I turned off the camera. I'm like, you just got to be natural, man. Like, don't try and like fake it too much. Like, and to give him an example, I was like, if I'm filming a review or something and I'm tired that day, like I'm not going to pretend like I'm like super energetic. It just might be a slightly more tired version of myself, right? And it is what it is because I want to be like authentic, so I'm not forcing anything, right? And now that guy, he now has 120,000 followers on Instagram and something like even more on TikTok. He's still doing like now it's food vlogging, not even food blogging. He's still doing it. He's got 120,000, 150,000 on each of those platforms. And I haven't checked in with him in a little bit, but I know he's making like easily six figures a year, somewhat not passively, but like doing something that's like most people would just consider a dream, like going to a restaurant, eating food on the house, getting paid for it, filming a quick video, editing it up, posting it. Like that's, and then I think he like also has like another business and that kind of thing too. So he's just making like six figures a year, doing something that like he enjoys as well. He continued on with it, and I just kind of like stopped a little bit after 2020 with the whole COVID thing. Um, yeah. So, but yeah, like now he's like a natural on camera. So it can take like years to get over it too. And that's why there's also value in what both of you guys are doing too, with helping people get over that initial hump and making it more natural because it's a back and forth conversation.
I've seen some of these food bloggers though, like in person, and I felt like I don't think I could do it. Like where they're set up in a restaurant with like all these lights around them, and people are eating, and they're just sitting there talking to the camera, like no one's around them. I wonder how they like get that confidence to like avoid like everyone around them when they're doing, like those TikTok dancers that you see. They'll just pull up to like a light or something, or their car crashes, and they're like doing their little dance or whatever, and you're like, what the fuck?
Yeah.
Yeah, some of that's
I
just obnoxious, but yeah.
I think it goes back to what we were talking about before and what you mentioned, Jer, of like you almost create the space to give somebody permission to show up authentically. And sometimes it takes them doing it with another person and doing what you did, Mike, where you're like, hey, you don't gotta do this. You don't gotta like perform. Like let's just shoot the shit. Let's just be us. I haven't had this happen yet where like I got somebody on an interview and I could tell that they were like immensely nervous and like holding back. Um, it hasn't happened to me yet, but something that I know I talked to you about this on a call we did a while back, Jer, but something I learned that I used to do before I went into like sales calls or anything was like to kind of regulate your nervous system and also warm up your voice is to like belt out a song right before you get on a call. Cause like just the act of like singing and humming, like literally calms your nervous system. It warms up your vocal cords. It kind of like loosens you up. So if I ever got on a call with somebody or we were like getting into an interview and I could tell they were like rigid, I'd be like, okay, let's take 5 minutes. I want you to go in your living room or wherever, like we'll come back on, but like go pick two songs that you fucking love to sing and just like sing them as loud as you can. And then we'll hop back on.
Oh,
I
so you
swear to
didn't make
God.
them sing the song. You didn't make them sing the song right there in front of you?
Nope.
No? I came in like a wrecking ball.
I mean, if they were willing to, but I feel like if they're getting on camera and they're already rigid, it's pretty unlikely they're gonna just drop a note for me on camera.
What you're saying is actually back
Yeah.
to neuroscience too. It's your vagus nerve, I believe it's called, and it when you hum, it causes like your nervous system to calm down for whatever reason. I've had to like really like work on my own nervous system like over the past 6 months. Just like take more walks, do more stretching, do more like I don't know if you've heard of this thing called like a psychological sigh, but like you breathe in two
Physiological
times,
sigh.
physiological sigh. you breathe in twice and then you like kind of go like you do that like kind of like sigh thing, and it actually calms your nervous system like significantly. Because I think what happens too is like your brain, your working memory gets fucked over by cortisol. When you have too much cortisol in your system, your working memory goes to shit. So then you're not able to access all these different parts of your brain that you need to actually kind of talk about whatever it is that you need. Mike nailed the wrecking ball.
Yeah, one day we'll do a full musical Substack live. Just kidding. I don't want to promise.
Yeah.
Yeah, it works. I haven't run into that yet with an interviewer. I find like usually once I get on with people, if they're nervous, I can't really tell. Um,
Mm.
but yeah, I used to do that before getting on sales calls just because I felt nervous, and it's not that like the nerves completely go away, but if I was like a 10 out of 10 nervous before and then I do that, it instantly takes me down to like a 7.
There's so many things in life where being in your own head creates a real like detriment. You know what I mean? Like it doesn't matter if it was like basketball or playing music in a band on stage or filming a video or a podcast or something, or even writing, even though writing is not something that's like live in the moment. But being in your own head too much about like, oh, is this a good idea? Can I actually say this on social media? Or like, are people going to like this? Like being in your own head, or you're on a date with somebody, right? Being in your own head is never a good thing unless it's in a positive way where you're kind of like bigging yourself up, talking yourself up, right? Um, like you're on a video call or something or a podcast, and you're like, oh, I've got a really great idea. I just need to get this out. That's good. That can work for you. But it's like filtering, like overly filtering yourself, overthinking. It's pretty much never positive.
I always found it to be a lot harder when I was working for people, when I wasn't an entrepreneur, because then I was like kind of like worried about being fired for something that I said, or just over saying something that wasn't representative of the company or something. So it just felt like a lot more pressure because I was trying to like hold on to like their baggage along with my baggage. And I feel like having your own thing, it's a lot more freeing because like you can say whatever the fuck you want. I mean, at the end of the day, like you're gonna like repel some people, and some people are gonna think, oh, Jeremy's a fucking idiot. And other people are like, I like that guy or whatever. So I think that when you do your own thing, I think that it just, I don't know, I'm a lot happier now that I don't have to like worry about like, I guess, other people that I'm like affecting.
What came to
Yeah.
mind for me there, what you said, Mike, about like getting in your own head, whether it's like getting on video or writing or whatever, it made me think of like that phrase of, when there are two people in a room, there's really six people in the room because there's each
Mm.
person as they actually
Mm.
are, and then there's each person as they see themselves, and then there's each person as the other person sees them. So there's like kind of three different versions of each of the two people. So I think if what came to mind there is like if you're getting really in your own head with like what you're writing or being on video, you're probably caring a lot about either the way that you see yourself and coming across a certain way or the way that you believe that person is perceiving you. So in that case, I would just say like, well, just come back to who you actually are and what you actually want to say and stop thinking about how you imagine you're going to be perceived. Because I find like I go through this a lot with my writing. And this is where I found that actually using AI is really helpful because sometimes I'm like, okay, I have this idea for a newsletter. I kind of know what I want to say. I have no idea like what the structure is or like what the takeaway is or anything yet. But I kind of like brain dump it all out. And that's like that like authenticity coming out is like, why does this feel important to me? Like, what are the things that I want to talk about here? And then the next step after that is refining it and figuring out like, hey, how do I want to position this? Like, who does this actually help? But I think if you come at it from that point of like, what is the like, where's the authenticity in this? Like, why is this worth writing about to me? What are the things I want to say? And you focus on writing from that perspective as opposed to writing what you think other people want to hear from you or the way that you want to portray yourself to people. For me, I think that's where my best writings have come from is like a very raw, vulnerable, like almost brain dump kind of way. And then you can go in and refine it and craft it. But I think the stuff that I put out that I usually end up not liking are usually the pieces that I wrote because I was trying to position myself a certain way, as opposed to just writing what I authentically want to write.
Yeah. And I think we've all heard that rule in copywriting, or people talk about it a lot in copywriting. And I know exactly where they're coming from, right? But it's like write for your reader, write for your reader. Well, that actually can be a flaw when it comes to personal branding. Because I think with like personal branding, more of that approach with content, like you really want to scratch your own itch first, and then solve other people's problems through scratching your own itch. But start with something that you actually genuinely dig and enjoy. And if you saw it on the timeline, you'd be like, oh, fuck yeah, this is exactly what I need. I needed somebody to say this. I needed somebody to teach this. Because you probably have a pretty, especially if you've been doing this for a period of time, you probably have a pretty high standard for what good content would be. So like lean into that. That's my approach too. I don't really love that line of just write for your reader, but it does apply more for copywriting for sure, because copywriting is just meant to sell, right? So if you're writing a sales page, like a landing page, yeah, you really should be thinking about what's going through your reader's head, right?
I feel like too, like the longer I like let ideas incubate, like if it's a newsletter, for example, and I could give sleep cycles, like if like let's just say I drafted on Monday and come back to it like Friday or something like that, I feel like it's usually better because my brain's compressed all the information, and like your brain does all sorts of shit in your sleep, the REM sleep and like the deep sleep. So a lot of the times you come back and you're looking at things not from the same angle. So I think sometimes I'm just wanting to push it out too fast and kind of baking some of this time into some of the content. It usually does better, but we don't always have the luxury of doing that. But I do like to try to conceptualize doing that in the I guess in the long term.
Yeah, I found that with my newsletters too, especially when I write a newsletter around somebody I've interviewed. I actually find it really helpful to not like put out that newsletter the same week I interview them. And with the way that my kind of production schedule has been working, it's not that immediate. But I find it's really cool because then by the time I come back to the interview, because I'm writing about it, I'm like I'm coming back to it. I'm like kind of rediscovering like, oh, what stands out to me here? Like, what do I really want to write this about? You're almost coming back to it with a little bit of like fresh eyes. And even the interview or even the articles where they're not about somebody I've interviewed, they're just like a newsletter that I want to write or something I want to say. Oh, Mike, Mike's phone probably died. Um, I find that I lately have been writing those like over a few days. Like sometimes I'll be like, okay, I've got a good like block of time on Monday. Maybe I'll write my newsletter, but I never like write it all that day. I mean, it's happened a few times where you just like have a great idea and it just pours out of you. But most of the time, it's like I get like the first draft down, and then I come back to it 2 days later and I read that draft and I'm like, hey, what stands out to me here as like this is the story and what do I want to cut? What is that phrase like? Write with your heart, edit with your head later, or something like that. So you just
Mhm.
kind of like get it out, get the idea out, dump out everything that you think you want to say around this, and then give it some space to breathe and come back later with that like editing mindset.
Yeah. Last question for you, and then we'll wrap it up. Do you have something that's like I don't know, like where you're like, I'm spent too much time on this. I just need to make a decision. I just need to ship this already. Like, do you ever have that thought too? Like, I don't know, we're like we're creating too many creative decisions and like we're like lagging on the shipping process. It doesn't seem like we all kind of have processes in place for it. But I'm just wondering too, if you ever have like cutoffs and you're like, all right, I'm just gonna like put a timer on for 30 minutes and say whatever I get done, this is gonna fucking ship.
I've been leaning into that more. Yeah, like letting go of perfectionism a little bit for the sake of just putting it out there. Because I think with social content, there's so much like testing and learning. So, and that goes back to what we said before about like finding clients that understand that too, especially in the first like month of working together. I kind of try to set those expectations up front of like, we're going to come into this with a lot of strategy and we're going to ask you questions to pull out what we believe is going to perform. But we're going to really see in that first month what works and what sparks aha moments for you, and what content performs the best. And the system is going to keep compounding on itself. So the goal is that like we're continually improving month to month. But so it's, you kind of have to set those expectations for the client and for yourself, that in those first like 30, maybe even 60 days, you have to be willing to not cling to perfectionism. And that's not to say you don't want like clean posts that you honestly believe are strong, but it might be like, okay, I like this clip, there's something here. I don't really know like what the takeaway is, or like what I want the CTA to be, or like I'm overthinking the caption. Well, okay, if you believe there's something here that can be shared, just fucking put it out. And maybe that clarity will come to you later and you can rework it and post it again. But I don't find that happens a ton with me right now, where it's like, oh, I'm being too much of a perfectionist on this. If anything, I've definitely had it before where I feel like I've overworked something. And then
Mm.
like in probably like 60% of my newsletters I write, there's some point in the process where I'm like, I ruined it. And then it just might need a little bit more tweaking and come back to it. But I feel like good pieces, you often go through those peaks and valleys of, there's some point where you wonder like, did I ruin this? Should I just scrap it and start over? And that might be the time when like maybe it's just time to ship it and I just need to let it be free.
Jack said, "Got to get back to work." I love these guys. Keep doing these lives. So we appreciate everyone that was on the call with us, and we'll see everyone next Friday at 9 if that works for you, Kelsey. Pacific.
Yeah. Same time as always.
Same time as always. All right. Bye, everyone. Have a good weekend.
Bye guys.